I wrote a book. It took me 4 years, and it was supposed to prepare Israel for this war. And Mayor Rubin, the CEO of the Kohelet Forum, is the one who tasked me with the writing of the book. About 4.5 years ago, he said, I don't trust the Israelis. They always think that they will prevail. And history has shown us that life is a wheel and we have to prepare for rainy days. Go and study and research and see how Israel can prepare better for an emergency situation. 3 situations: an earthquake, a global epidemic, and a war that is forced upon us at a bad time. So you're telling us that we're going to have an earthquake in 3 years' time? If you ask Mayor Rubin, he's a very, very smart guy. He's the kind of guy that if you give him a book in the evening, the next morning he'll give you a summary in writing. And there is a wide variety of people in the Israeli security system, and Gershon is one of the senior people that I interviewed. And this book represents the entire work of the department there in the forum, the security research department. On October 7th, I was a tiny molecule in the emergency army made up of all kinds of special units that volunteered. They thought it was a terror attack and found themselves in an all-out war. And I found myself doing my work. I was driving inside my work. So the book was published a little bit too late. And there's a page and a half that is the introduction to the introduction, and includes thanks to Gershon and all kinds of other people. So you also ignored the intelligence. Why? We screamed. Nobody listened to us. So one of the people that wasn't listened to, who cried out, and Shalom Yerushalmi is here, and he didn't read a wonderful book that guy wrote. The Moment of Truth, an outstanding book in my library. That's Shalom wrote the book. It is a collection of the words of the Rabbi of Lubavitch, which is a collection of all kinds of warnings. And he all used this expression that I called out and no one heard. Shimon Peres once said, I wrote the book with pleasure, but not with agreement. So you are the person who brought to my knowledge the words of the Rabbi, and I thank you for that. The influence of the Rabbi of Lubavitch, I recommend to everyone to read my book. In any case, what I argue in the book, it was before the war, that there are 6 conceptions, not 1. I use the word conception or mindset. I know we don't have a lot of time, but I'll just read you the headings. Anyone who wants, the book is called Karit Nasa, Rise Like a Lion. And the 6 conceptions, a lot of it is inspired by Gershon. And the first is the Israeli superiority in any situation. In other words, we'll always be on top. It'll always be easy for us. The second one is technology will do the fighting for us. In other words, we have elite technology, and so we can develop this new invention of an army with no sacrifice. The third is, and I think it's something that blew up in our faces in the most obvious fashion, or most heroic fashion, and that's this one is, the Israeli public are weak and cannot participate in an all-out war. And the Israeli public have proved that just the opposite is the case. At this stage, I always weep because I remember all the people I saw lying on the ground dead after they fought. And the next conception is the world won't stand by. And the next one, the 5th one, is perhaps the worst of all, and we're right in the middle of it, and it endangers our very existence as the Jewish people in the world, and here in this place, in America, we trust. It's difficult to imagine, and Gershon can explain it, as someone who was a general in the army, how the dependence on America has become a chokehold around the Israeli throat to the extent, with Blinken says, without blinking, we're willing for you to commit suicide for us for all kinds of progressive things that endanger is American interests and Israeli interests. And the sixth conception, just I want to remind you of 277 flights a day of American arms and ammunition. My dear friend Shalom Yerushalmi, why in the year 2023 do I need arms and ammunition from America? How did I get to that situation? What happened to Israel's military industries? What happened to we have ammunition, we have factories that manufactured ammunition. We had a plane. We export. We are one of the biggest arms exporters in the United States, but America doesn't allow some things because they're holding us by the throat. Now people are starting to understand that. That's the difference between 2023 and 1973. In 1973, Golda, Kissinger, and all those guys, they closed everything behind the scenes. They agreed on everything. The soldiers were at the front. But today, everybody knows there are no more lies. Today, the American Secretary of Defense comes here, and a half an hour later, our Minister of Defense announces that as Gazans will go back to northern Gaza. At the cocktail parties, they say that they are supporting their greatest friend, and behind closed doors, they grow horns and they say, if you don't do what we'll say, then you'll be sorry. We have to stand up to them. It's time we left the exile and we stand up and say, Am Yisrael Chai. America admires that. One thing it's important to understand, two great people that I mentioned in this book, David Wurmser, who was a PhD and an advisor to Bolton and Cheney, and the biggest expert on Iran, and he said that America admires courage and freedom, and they grew up on that culture, the cowboy culture, a little house on the prairie and all that, and they admire us when we are strong, and they have contempt for us when we bow down to them. And the other one is the Rebbe of Lubavitch, and because you wrote that book, how much he advised the Israeli government, and he told all our leaders, don't bend down to Americans. They appreciate firmness, politely, but firmness. I just hope that the U.S. doesn't cut off relations with us. The United States needs us more than we need them in the global war right now. Russia, Iran, Turkey, they're all against America. China.